Good afternoon, everybody. This is Atindra Singh here from Wooqer team. I am the Director of Key Accounts managing businesses in South India. Along with me, joining on this webinar today is Ashit Verma, who is heading the marketing division at Wooqer. And today we will take you through one of the most critical use cases as far as customer experience is concerned, and that is the Net Promoter Score. I would request at this point that anybody who has questions for our team to kindly use the chat feature and post questions to us through that medium. So let us take you through what NPS is all about. Earlier days, that is before 2003, people used to ask for customer feedbacks. And you would imagine that there are certain guest books that used to be placed in stores or in different offices or units. And customers would come in, guests would come in, fill in their details, they give their feedbacks, positive, negatives, and then go away. And a lot of times that information was neither quantifiable or there was a difficulty in collating or consolidating information out of it. So sometime in 2003, there was an effort and an exercise done in order to find out what is that one measure that will help us identify the efficacy of customers' emotions. How do we know whether a customer is supporting our product, our service, or is he negatively associated with it, or is he dissatisfied with our service or product? And so the concept came in of a Net Promoter Score, wherein you ask the customers a simple question: how likely is it that you would recommend us to your friend? Asking for a recommendation is a very strong indicator of whether the customer is advocating your business or is he detracting from it. On a scale of 10, you would ask your customers the same question. If the customers respond between 10 and 9, then you can safely say that he is a strong believer of your product. If they answer between 8 and 7, it simply indicates that the customer feels neutral about your product. He is neither too dissatisfied, neither very happy with the product. But it is between answers that come from 0 to 6 that you find out that the customer is generally not happy with your service. In a very competitive age today, we need to identify who these people are who are dissatisfied, because eventually they are the ones who will either spread the negative sentiments about the product or are not likely to return at all. Today, as businesses, we spend a lot of money, energy, time to get customers to buy our products and services. And if we find out that most of our products and services are being rejected, it's definite indication that the business is on the losing side. So the NPS score is then calculated as a percentage. So when you have responses coming in from all the customer feedbacks, you get a percentage of what are the number of people who have responded in favor of your product. That is any answer between 10 and 9. You also get a percentage of what are the respondents who have responded to a negative feedback. That is any answer between 0 and 6. When you subtract the two percentages, you get a Net Promoter Score between -100 and +100. Any score that is 0 or below means that overall the sentiment about your product is negative, the product and your service is bad, and people are not likely to help you grow. Any answer that is between any Net Promoter Score value, between 0 and 100, indicates that you are on the positive side of growth. Your customers are willing to speak about you, they're going to advocate about you, they're going to recommend you. The score typically, when they exceed 50 or above, means that your business is highly likely to grow. Now, before I move forward, I have built a context for you as to what this NPS score is all about. It is one number that helps you measure your customers' propensity to advocate for you. Therefore, it is important that you listen to what customers are saying. You take these NPS score data and analyze whether month on month or for your different units and act in order to close the loop and improvise on your product or service. Going forward, let us see some use cases for which NPS scores have become widely successful and popular measures in industry. I'm going to take two examples here. One is a company called Lego and the other being Apple. Everyone knows about Apple. And these are two different case studies as far as NPS score is concerned. Lego in 2005 was nearing bankruptcy because the engineers were coming up with products that nobody wanted to buy. One of their CEOs at that point decided that instead of annual surveys, they want to replace the system with continuous feedback mechanism, and they implemented NPS. It is heartening to see that the business started growing within 1 year. Today, Lego is a worldwide popular name for products for children, and the reason of their success is because they started listening to their customers more proactively. 24 minutes is the average time within which they reach out to a customer who gives a low feedback. Now, this is because they're able to close the loop. The moment customer gives a negative feedback or a score between 0 and 6, there is a battery of team available who's willing to reach out to the customer and potentially turn them around into a positive customer. What happens when you turn people into your advocates? Now imagine if somebody was passively satisfied, and what I mean is people giving a feedback between 7 and 8. So in this case, if you are able to turn them into your promoters, you are able to generate 26% revenue more. You are able to increase your revenue by 26%. If you are able to turn your detractors into people who have neutral opinion, you are able to increase your business further by 20%. This is a statistic that Lego has published in public domain. The other case study is about Apple. Apple is known for its customer service, has been a gold standard in terms of valuing their customer feedback. And in today's day, especially in the retail format of Apple, measuring NPS and acting upon their NPS is a daily process. Every day, the stores get together for a huddle. Every store manager takes a meeting of the entire staff. And of the many things that they discuss for the day's plan, NPS plays a crucial role. If the score for yesterday was poor, they have to improve their service, act upon it. Otherwise, if they have done a good service, they need to understand what was that good exercise they did. This has resulted over the period of years in an amazing NPS score and customer satisfaction for Apple, especially for their retail stores. In the year 2007, 168 stores of Apple were rated at 58%. As the years grew ahead and stores increased, the NPS score of entire Apple also increased. So it goes to say that Apple is a testimony of NPS score being used at scale and being able to deliver customer experience, world-class customer experience at scale. At 320 stores, Apple's NPS score was 72%. Today, Apple has a worldwide benchmark of 90% customer satisfaction. Where are we today? While I have given you examples of people who are active promoters of NPS, we have seen today that in the industry, there is still a heavy reliance on customer feedbacks either executed through paper-based forms or through digital forms via iPad or mobile. Now, there is fundamental problem around having your customer feedbacks done in this manner. And first of all, the most important drawback is the slow reach. Data, especially in the case of physically designed forms, moves very slowly up to corporate ladder. because all the analysis at the corporate level is done after consolidation of data from different units. Especially in retail, we have an issue because when your stores are 100 or 200, collating all this data becomes an enormous task. Now, if your customer survey data is reaching to you 5 or 7 days in delay, then potentially you have lost all these customers as your potential promoters. There is also a risk of information loss. Physical forms are subject to tampering, subject to modification, subject to theft, destruction, etc. If this crucial data is not received in time in its right format, then again businesses suffer heavily. Inefficient analysis. Now, if you're not doing an NPS score analysis for your organization, it's very hard to quantify the subjective feedbacks that customers give for you. People could use different languages, people could use different sentences, and could express in variety of ways which are non-comprehensible at scale. Imagine you have thousands of customers walking in, and when you are doing an NP or customer feedback, you potentially are looking at hundreds and thousands of data yourself. How will you collate this information and build a strategy around it is always a difficult question that businesses face today. Increasing cost, well, if you are deploying hardware, if you're deploying paper-based forms, there is a cost associated with it. There is a cost associated of distribution, there's a cost associated of printing and collection if the forms are physical. For hardware, for a hardware device, whether it is a tablet or a kiosk for customer feedback, there is a cost of installation, there is a cost of maintenance, and as you grow more in terms of stores, this cost is rapidly going to increase for you. So these are some of the various drawbacks today that are available when you are executing your customer surveys through physical forms or plainly digital forms. I want you all to imagine that if you do not have NPS, what are you missing today? I'm going to take a hypothetical example here. Let's take an example of our colleague. Let's say his name is Tanmay, and he runs a fashion brand. Now, Tanmay has 50 outlets spread all across the country. In a fair estimate, Tanmay has 1,500 daily walking-in customers, and he's looking at a revenue of 75,000 per day. This is in Indian rupees. Now, for him to manage customer feedback is very important because this 50 outlets could grow tomorrow to 100 outlets. But let's look at what is he losing if there is no customer feedback loop that he's maintaining and doing it in a speed. In a good estimate, we are safe to assume that through all of his 50 outlets and 1,500 walking-in customers, he can at least expect 150 customer feedbacks in a single day. Now, if he had an NPS mechanism which was closing the loop absolutely quickly and getting to reach to customers who are not advocating for his business, he could have turned around a revenue of 15,000 more per day. But because there is no NPS mechanism in the store, his business is suffering this opportunity cost as a potential revenue. That means he could have grown his business 20%. 15,000 would roughly be about 20% of his business. He could have grown that revenue on a daily basis. If you multiply, you can always multiply this through your week, through your month, and through your year, and you could see that if you're not reaching out to your customers in time, the amount of revenue that you're losing is just multiplying by the day. Now, what could he have done? Imagine he had an NPS mechanism in place. He would have been able to see a score chart of all his stores shown in the example here. His chart would show that, let's say he has, I'm just taking an anecdotal example here for the ease of understanding. So let's say there are 6 units which are running NPS, and these are, let's say, 6 stores of his. two of his stores are poorly performing. You can see clearly that the overall NPS score for that particular store, for that particular time period is negative. That means people are very, very unhappy either with the product or with the services. But you also see that some of his stores are performing extremely well. And the score indicates that a score of 50 or 80 above is indicative that these particular stores will be doing excessively good revenue. Now, having this score chart in front of your eyes gives you enough pointers, it gives you enough data points for building a strategy around what can I do to turn things around. You will obviously have a lot of good best practices that these stores who are high performers will be having. It is important that you share these best practices with the poorly performing stores. The very fact that you will be able to publish this data within your company, within your stores, generates a sense of competitiveness. You are able to now create a positive reinforcement saying that if you are going to perform well and your NPS scores increase, then let's say there's an incentive around it. And you can incentivize your store managers, your store staff, and that we have seen an experience has resulted in a positive NPS score. So there are various ways in which you can build your entire organization's NPS score towards a positive score. What is missing today is visibility into where your weak performers are, where your strong performers are. So NPS is that one number that you must grow. I would want to highlight today and talk to you through very briefly as to what are the predictors and what are the top advantages you get out of an NPS. First thing, it's an indicator of your growth. If you have high NPS scores, it is usually correlated with good revenue growth as well. And that means you have more advocates for your brand, and that means that year on year you're going to see increase in your business. NPS provides you visibility. In the previous slide, we have seen a very small but crisp example of where you need to focus on in order to bring overall NPS scores up. Overall customer look and feel, customer experience up. You know where and how you want to identify grievances. Once you're doing customer feedbacks and you know that there is a negative feedback, in real time you can respond to customers, address their concerns, and typically we have seen that businesses are able to resolve such customer grievances if they are reached in time. You also know who are your promoters. Therefore, you can build loyalty around them. You can find their buying patterns. You can assess how they are, what they are buying, how they are buying, what made them happy, and therefore you can use this information to continue to build your customer base into a loyal one. So these are the four major benefits we see that NPS provides. With this, we have concluded an overall discussion on NPS. We've highlighted through some of the case studies the importance of NPS in the industry. We've also taken you through a case study wherein what happens when you don't do an NPS score and what helps you through an NPS in order to achieve growth. We've highlighted what are the top benefits that you can achieve through NPS. And now our team, Ashit and I, are available for taking your questions. So one question that we have here is, what are the difficulties in driving NPS programs within the organization? In our opinion, in our experience from about 100 odd customers that we have today, we have seen that there are two major roadblocks in terms of driving NPS programs. One is an organizational buy-in. So typically you have to convince the top leadership and you have to educate them as to how NPS will help in building revenue, help in growth. The typical questions that come around this is you would want to allocate resources, you would want to allocate time and analysis around NPS, but that's how where you convince your top leadership that it is an effort worth spending. The other challenge that we see is in adoption. This again, so adoption meaning when you launch an NPS program, how do you get your different stores to comply? How do you educate and how do you train them? Now, typically this can be achieved through, in today's day and age, you can generate a lot of collateral. Training is always an ongoing process in stores. Stores can be educated on how NPS helps, and therefore, now when you do competitive, sharing of NPS score data for all of your stores, there's a lot of positive reinforcement, and therefore stores continue to participate in order to be the top achievers. So we have few more questions. I will take this in interest of everybody's time. One of the first questions we have is, without implementation towards product and process, can we improve NPS? I think that's a very fair question. Now, what happens is NPS improvement only happens when you close the loop. That means, if let me take you through that loop. Typically, your products are launched, then your marketing team gets into activity and reaches out to all customers in order to try and buy your products and processes or your services. And then they come back, interact with your product and service, give you a feedback. Now, it is at that point you will notice whether the product has performed to its expectation or not. Depending on what the customer's feedback are, you will then use this information to iterate your product and your services. Therefore, its product and your services are very key to devising your entire NPS cycle. The second question that we have is, what are the various tools we can use to increase customer participation in NPS surveys? I think here the fundamental issue has been, how do I even reach to my customers in order to get his feedback? In today's world, a lot of people focus on hardware-based mechanism in order to reach their customers. They try to reach their customers through SMSs, through emails, and a lot of these methods are being ignored by customers in general because there is too much of noise around these methods. Now, I'll tell you the drawbacks with hardware methods. Typically, these hardware kiosks are installed at the time when you do billing. Now, when you are doing billing, you already have a happy customer, or you generally have very few unhappy customers. But it is at the time of their moving out of the store when you want to reach out to the customer and ask him whether he has liked the collection, whether he has enjoyed the service, or whether he has enjoyed the product or not. Therefore, you need a tool today to reach him at various touch points. Now, and you need to always think about low-cost methods. So, Wooqer has a method wherein you can reach out to their customers on their mobile devices, and you can have a very low-cost mechanism in order to reach out to the customers. The other question that we see is, how can Wooqer help calculate and analyze NPS scores? Well, Lucky for you, Wooqer already has built an NPS mechanism within its platform. We help you analyze and track for all your NPS score for all your stores. And I'll be very happy to give a detailed demo on how you can use Wooqer as a platform to leverage NPS. When we reach out to you through our for our survey as well, we will seek a request in order to discuss a demo discussion purely on NPS to Wooqer. So next question that we have is, how do I communicate with users who said that they would recommend our product? I think I will also extend this question to say, how would you reach out to your customers who have negatively rated your product also? Now, what businesses do is, in order to close the loop, they first gather the score, NPS score from customers. They have mechanism, and typically it is a department in the marketing field who has either the ability to reach out through email or through phone, that is through a call. And therefore, in the form, you will collect one or the other basic detail in order to reach to a customer. Either you will take their email address or you will take their phone number in order to reach to a customer. Now, typically, your help desk is the one who can reach out to the customer and address their issues, because when you get customer feedbacks at the scale of 100, 200 customer feedbacks a day, one person alone cannot address this. So I hope I have answered this particular question. I have another question which is asking, can I change the language of the survey depending on the cultural mix of the country? Yes, I will explain to you in terms of how Wooqer delivers it. Typically, what happens is you can create multiple such NPS feedback forms in different languages. And let's say you want in Kannada, you want in Tamil, you want in Hindi, you want in English. So these are about 4 major languages you want to run this process. You can create 4 different NPS surveys, and you know which store speaks which language, and you can assign these forms for that particular area. Now, whenever a customer wants to open the feedback, he can choose the language in which he wants to answer and scan a particular QR code. So therefore, the choice now is available with the customer, saying that there are 4 ways or 4 languages in which he can choose to answer the customer feedback. He simply has to scan a QR code, and he will be able to answer the customer feedback form in his required language.